Somewhere right now, a camera is looking at a crowd, and in less than a second, it has measured a face, turned it into a string of numbers, and matched it against a database without anyone in that crowd knowing it happened. You probably assume this is new, that facial recognition was born sometime in the last 15 years alongside smartphones, social media, the little square that finds your friends in a photo, that it's a product of our time. It isn't. The core of this technology is more than 60 years old. It was working in a crude form before the moon landing, and the story of who first built it, and more importantly, who quietly paid for it, tells you everything about what this machine was always for. Because facial recognition did not start as a convenience. It started as a way to find people who did not want to be found. The story begins in the 1960s with a researcher named Woodrow Bledsoe. There were no neural networks then, no deep learning, no cloud, nothing we'd recognize as artificial intelligence. So Bledsoe did it the only way he could, by hand. He'd take a photograph of a face and, using a crude electronic tablet and stylus, manually mark the coordinates of its features, the corners of the eyes, the tip of the nose, the line of the mouth, the hairline. Those coordinates became a set of numbers, distances, and ratios, a face reduced to mathematics. And once a face was just numbers, a computer could do the one thing it was good at: compare those numbers against another set and find the closest match. It was painfully slow. A human had to feed the machine every measurement. But the principle that runs every facial recognition system on Earth today was already there, fully formed in that quiet room. Turn a human face into data, then search the data. Everything since has just been making it faster. But here's the part of the story that matters most. And it's the part that's easiest to miss. Bledsoe's work was funded, not by a university curious about photographs, and not by a company wanting to sell you anything. The money came, by most accounts, from an unnamed intelligence agency, a client that did not want its name attached to the research, and so the published record stays deliberately thin. Sit with that for a second. At the very birth of this technology, before it could do almost anything useful, someone with a serious budget and a serious interest in identifying people had already decided it was worth paying for, quietly. This was never a tool that escaped the lab and got repurposed for surveillance. Surveillance was the point from day one. The face in a photo tagging, the phone that unlocks when you look at it, those came decades later, and they are the friendly face of a project whose original client was watching people, not connecting them. We just don't usually tell the story in that order. For a long time, the technology stayed stuck behind that human bottleneck. Persons still had to mark the points. It worked, but it couldn't scale, and scale is what changes a curiosity into a power. The first real leap came in the early 1990s at MIT with an approach called eigenfaces. Instead of a human measuring noses and eyes, researchers let the computer analyze thousands of faces and discover, on its own, the underlying patterns that make faces different from one another. The machine learned what to look at. That was the moment facial recognition stopped needing a human in the loop. Now you could point it at an image and it would do the measuring itself. It was still limited, still fragile in bad light or at odd angles, but the leash to human hands had been cut. The machine could finally look on its own. And a system that can look on its own can look at everyone. Then came the 2010s and deep learning changed everything. Around 2014, systems built on neural networks trained on enormous piles of images crossed a line that had stood for the entire history of the field. They became as good as humans at recognizing a face. In some tests, better. The error rates that had made the technology a novelty for 50 years simply collapsed. Suddenly, this wasn't a lab demo. It was a product. It could pick a single face out of a moving crowd in real time at a distance from a cheap camera. The thing Bledsoe had done by hand, one painstaking photo at a time, a machine could now do millions of times an hour automatically and never get tired. The technology had finally caught up to the ambition that funded it at the very beginning. The only thing it was still missing was faces to learn from. And that problem was about to be solved in the most invasive way imaginable. Because here is the question almost nobody asks. To get that good, these systems had to study hundreds of millions of faces. Where exactly did all those faces come from? The answer, increasingly, was from you, from all of us. Some came from mugshot databases, some from driver's license photos, handed to a government agency for one purpose and quietly fed into another. And a staggering number were simply scraped off the open internet, pulled from social media, from photo sharing sites, from anywhere a face was posted in public. Companies assembled databases of billions of images, and not one of those people was ever asked. Think about what that means. A photo you uploaded years ago to remember a birthday, a trip, a friend, may now be a single data point teaching a machine how to recognize human faces, including yours. You were never the customer. You were the training set. And a face is not like any other piece of data you give away. If a company leaks your password, you change it. If your card number is stolen, the bank issues a new one. Inconvenient, but fixable. Your face is different. Your face is permanent. You cannot reset it. You cannot revoke it. You wear it every single day, in public, where any camera can capture it without your consent and without you ever knowing. That's what makes facial recognition different from almost every other surveillance tool in history. It doesn't need you to carry a card, type a name, or sign in. It works at a distance, silently, on a feature you can never take off. The most personal identifier you have was turned into a barcode, and you can't stop wearing the barcode. And here's the cruel twist. The machine that sees everyone does not see everyone equally. Large independent studies have found that facial recognition systems are not uniformly accurate. They tend to make more mistakes on some faces than others, with documented higher error rates for women and for people with darker skin, depending on the system. The technology that promises perfect, objective identification turns out to carry the blind spots of the data it was fed. This is not an abstract concern. There are already documented cases of people arrested, real people taken from their homes, held in cells, because an algorithm matched their face to someone they had never been. Innocent on the word of a machine. When the system is right, it can strip away your anonymity in a crowd. When it's wrong, it can cost you your freedom. And in both cases, you are the last person who finds out it was used. So the next time your phone unlocks with a glance, remember what you're actually looking at. That little moment of convenience is the polished, friendly face of a 60-year-old project that began with an unnamed client who wanted to identify people quietly. The technology didn't drift towards surveillance. Started there. Everything warm and useful about it, the photo tags, the faster airport line, the phone that knows you, was layered on top much later to make a watching machine feel like a helpful one. None of this means the technology is going away. It isn't. It's spreading into stadiums, stores, streets, and borders, often faster than any law can follow. But there's a difference between a tool you chose and a tool that was always pointed at you, and now you know which one this is. So tell me down in the comments, should live facial recognition in public spaces be banned outright, or is that door already closed? And if this rewired how you see the cameras around you, the file on the email sent in 1971 that quietly became the backbone of how we're all tracked is waiting for you on screen right now.